on the ongoing flood preparation efforts
in North Sioux City flood control meeting, Don Fuxa, Mayor, June 8th, 2011.
microphone so everyone can hear it. That would be great. Folks, you guys have been awesome. I can't say enough how proud the city council and myself as mayor are of the way you've handled this thing since we found out the information and we needed to act. The stuff that's been going around the area here has just been tremendous. Friend helping friend, neighbor helping neighbor. Families sticking together. Everything right now is status quo. If you were at the last meeting, nothing has changed. All the information provided as far as river levels and elevations is the same as what it was last week. So I take that as very good news. I'd just like to shout out one thank you to our school superintendent, Al Lieber. The school has just been outstanding through this whole process in helping the city out and the National Guard out and all of the other volunteers. So Mr. Lieber, wherever you are, thank you very much. This afternoon I had an opportunity to spend about 2 hours with our governor. He toured our residential areas. He toured our levees that we're building, and he was very impressed. He was here over the weekend as well, impressed with what you as a community have done in the short amount of time that we have had to work with. Let's just talk a little about the levees. The levees around McCook Lake continue to be constructed in an effort to prevent the river from getting into the lake and causing us even more difficulties. The National Guard has been a huge help and a lifesaver for us. Those folks have helped build the levees and continue to work on them, and they will be the ones that will do the monitoring of the levees. So if there are any problems at all with the levees, they'll let us know through their incident commander that we have assigned to us, and any and all action that's necessary to alleviate any problem will be taken at that time. We as a city, we're continually monitoring our sanitary and water system. One thing that you folks could really do to help us out, and that would be because of the rising groundwater that we're going to expect, for the next 6 or 8 weeks, it's very important that you monitor your basements, and if you have groundwater, don't pump it back into the sanitary system. Pump it outside somewhere so that it doesn't overload our sanitary system. That's going to be really important, folks, as we go forward. The city, along with the incident commander assigned to us, is closely monitoring the Big Sioux levee, and they are prepared to take any and all necessary actions. The gates to the Big Sioux levee, in North Sioux were closed earlier this morning, and the pumps are ready to go should any groundwater start to surface and alleviate that situation. As far as the levee goes, that we're talking about around McCook Lake, that's still being construction. Progress has been made. They're flying in helicopter bags of sand to help construct the levee in the lower areas of the Adams Nature area. The city has built one that's probably, Greg, 1/4 mile long. And what their plan is, and it'll work, is to connect to the North Sioux City levee through the Adams Nature area to the Windstone levee to the west. So there'll be a continual levee from the Windstone area all the way through the McCook Lake area. And the National Guard will be keeping an eye on that for us, folks, so no need to worry about that. If you are interested in receiving any information as far as emergency information via the email, if you just contact City Hall with your email address, they will put you on a list, and if anything arises suddenly, we'll try to get the message out as quickly as possible. Tonight we have with us our city council, the ones that can be here. We have Chuck Meyer, Dan Parks, Lisa Cropley, Sherry Latrew, Joni Christensen, and then the other ones that will be speaking tonight if you have questions, Randy Frederickson with the city, Chief Fry, Greg Meyer, our city engineer. With that, I think I've covered basically what was in your flyer, your brochure. So I'll turn it over to Greg, and he can answer any questions or comment on any of the levees or sanitary system that we have. Folks, again, thank you for your patience through this whole thing. You guys have been great.
Thank you, Don. I really don't have much to add. The levee the city has under construction is essentially completed from an earthwork standpoint. The guard is placing some plastic protection on the fresh earth portions of the levee, so in the hopes of minimizing any seepage or minimizing any wave action that might impact the new fresh dirt. We are not we overnight saw water up against the levee. We have 4 or 5 feet of water up against the levee on the east end of it. So we have about 4 or 5 feet of water up against the levee on the east end. So, and essentially that's nearing completion. So that's about all I have to report. If there are any questions I could answer, I'll be glad to try to do that.
Where is the levee?
The question was, where is the levee? And the levee exists across the combination of the Hoffman property and Adams Nature area. And it's directly south of what may be locally known as the channel out of the Cook Lake. So if you go down through the Adams Nature area bike trail, in an area where the old concrete bridge used to sit, if you're familiar with that, and then go due east, that's where the trail's at. I would encourage you to not go down there and look at it for a while. There's a lot of construction activity and other things going on, and we don't need anybody getting hurt at this point in time. So tough to get in and out of there.
How high is the levee?
The levee's at 1102 right now. Councilperson Christensen just asked if 1102 is still the level we're anticipating seeing, and I think that's stayed consistent from the core. That 1102 elevation is what we're looking at mile marker 740, which is the mile marker on the Missouri River straight south of the channel. And that does have a little bit of protective, 2 foot of protective safety in it. So take that into consideration when you look at that 1102 elevation.
What's the mile marker in the bridge?
I can look that up to be, come to me afterwards, my memory, which is dangerous, is 732.35. And if you're looking to calculate, it's a foot per mile. It's kind of what we're using for the river slope. And only in this business can we have a different datum on the river gauge than the datum that's used for the elevation that you see here tonight. 1102 is on a different datum. So if you're interested in calculating that, call me or talk to me, and I'll be glad to go through the calculations with you. I'm not sure I heard all that, but I think you were asking me. Yeah, would you maybe you were asking me. You heard the river was lower than forecasted, and what would be the final elevation of the river? From what I've been tracking on the Reservoir Control Center website, I think the releases are just a few thousand CFS less than what was forecasted. I think we were at 125 was what the website put out yesterday, and it was supposed to be at 130. The gauge readings have been a little bit less than what was forecasted by day, but the official word is still no change in elevation. I think we're just going to have to wait till about next Monday or Tuesday and see where this HECRAS model that the Corps uses to estimate water surface elevation has a lot of variables that have to be put in, and certainly there's room for changes in those variables. So the Corps, in my experience, is very good at estimating elevation of the river flows. Well, 1102 is with the protection is what the number is, and that's what has been since the last meeting, and that's pretty much what they're staying. I don't know. I've heard a lot of rumors. I've heard the dam's moving. I've heard there's water leaking out. I've heard the elevation's going to go up 5 feet. But the forecast for the next 3 weeks stops at 150,000 next week, and it doesn't change after that. That's what's published on their website. So I don't know any more than that. But I was at a Corps office in South Sioux last week, and somebody came in and said, "Yeah, I just heard the river was going to go to 1104." And the Corps officer there just said, problem is you hear an elevation, and because of that 1 mile, foot per mile slope on the river, elevations upriver are going to be higher than they are here, or in Dakota Valley is going to be lower, Dakota City is going to be lower. So you have to make sure that the elevation that you hear is for the river mile marker that you're on. And that's where I think a lot of the bad information is coming from. Riverville.
So if the levees hold, how high do you anticipate McCook Lake will go?
We really don't know how high McCook Lake will go. I think we should anticipate, that's a good question, Kathy. I think we should anticipate that the lake will rise a little quicker here in the early days of this event after we reach the maximum gauge, because the hydraulic gradient will be a little higher. Yesterday I surveyed the river and I think it was about 1096. So that would put it about 6 feet higher than McCook Lake. Well, as this goes on, and if McCook Lake rises, that gradient will be reduced and the rate of change will be different. So I wouldn't become overly alarmed if we're seeing a large inch or so increase in the lake per day initially, because I think that'll slow down with time. But I don't know where it's going to settle out at. The question is, are there maps that show elevations at homes? And about the best mapping that I've found is on the Corps of Engineers Omaha District website, and you click on the flood icon, and there's inundation maps, and you just have to go through those. I think at the last meeting I had copies of those inundation maps on an easel, and I had to leave and I left them at the meeting. So I don't have them. I don't know if the city has them, but they're on the internet at that Corps of Engineers Omaha District office website.
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
We all know the river increases 1 foot for every mile north. What are the chances of the river that's already crested between McCook and Jefferson coming in this way?
I think I can answer that, Greg, unless you would. The folks that are in charge of our area explained to me it's just like in a military confrontation. You try to protect the nearest to the enemy that you can. So when we get the levees in place along McCook Lake through the Nature Center to Windstone, then they're looking at that as well. So once they're confident, and they're very confident they will get this done, they'll start looking at the other side, and they are looking at the other side from the northwest and from the Big Sioux River as well. That might be a good question for Ray Ragau, who is the Union County emergency individual that's in charge there. He was concerned about water and coming in from the northwest up around the public boat area that is north and west of McCook Lake towards Jefferson on the road, the back road towards Jefferson. Are there any other questions for our city engineer or our city staff?
Do you anticipate what the level of the next year is going to be?
The question is, do we anticipate or do we know what the level of the Big Sioux could rise to? We don't. I think
It's already higher than what you predicted.
Right. The people that are in charge of our area are monitoring that, Tony. So they're keeping an eye on that as well. They're very well aware of it.